The story begins not under the glittering lights of a stadium, but in a small, humble house on 2300 Jackson Street. In Gary, Indiana, a city of steel and smoke, a musical dynasty was quietly taking shape. Michael Jackson was born into a world of ambition and discipline, the eighth of 10 children. His father, Joseph, a steelworker by day, dreamed of a different life for his family. He saw the raw, undeniable talent simmering in his sons. Music was the air they breathed, the foundation of their days. It was more than a hobby. It was their ticket to a world beyond the factory gates, a destiny waiting to be claimed by sheer will and relentless practice. From the first moments he could hold a tune, Michael was different. There was a light in him, a soulfulness that seemed far beyond his tender years. The world first met Michael Jackson as the pint-sized dynamo fronting the Jackson 5. When they burst onto the scene with their Motown debut, it was an explosion of pure, unadulterated joy. And at the center of it all was Michael. He was just a child, yet he performed with the confidence and polish of a seasoned veteran. Songs like I Want You Back, ABC, and The Love You Save became more than just hits. They were anthems for a generation, soundtracks to first crushes and summer days. The Jackson 5 weren't just a musical group. They were a cultural phenomenon. They broke racial barriers, becoming one of the first black acts to achieve crossover success on such a massive scale. Behind the scenes, the journey continued to be one of relentless work. The group toured constantly, honing their craft night after night. For Michael, this was his education in entertainment. He watched every opening act, studied every lighting rig, and learned how to build a show from the ground up. He was a student of the art form in its entirety, driven by an insatiable curiosity and a desire to be the best. As the 1970s drew to a close, Michael felt a growing artistic restlessness. The formula of the Jackson 5, while successful, had become a creative cage. He had ideas, sounds, and visions swirling in his mind that needed a bigger canvas. He yearned to break free and explore his own musical identity. This desire culminated in the 1979 album, Off the Wall. Teaming up with legendary producer Quincy Jones, Michael created a masterpiece of post-disco funk and sophisticated soul. This wasn't the music of a boy anymore. It was the work of a young man on the cusp of greatness. A statement of artistic independence that was both bold and brilliant. Off the Wall was a declaration. With hits like Don't Stop Till You Get Enough and Rock With You, Michael invited the world into his new sonic universe. His voice had matured, gaining a new depth and texture, yet it retained that signature joyful yelp. He was in complete control, co-producing and writing several of the tracks, proving he was more than just a charismatic performer. He was an architect of sound. On May 16, 1983, the landscape of popular culture was irrevocably altered. It happened during the broadcast of the Motown 25 television special. After a nostalgic reunion performance with his brothers, Michael Jackson remained on stage alone. The air was thick with anticipation. Then, the instantly recognizable bass line of Billie Jean filled the auditorium. What followed was not just a performance, it was a cultural detonation. He moved with a surreal grace and precision, a whirlwind of spins, slides, and sharp, angular poses. He wasn't just singing a song, he was embodying it, living out its paranoid, dramatic narrative right there on the stage. And then, it happened. During the song's instrumental bridge, Michael took a few steps backward. But he wasn't walking. He was gliding, effortlessly, as if the stage were made of ice. It was the first time the world had witnessed the moonwalk. The live audience erupted in a roar of disbelief and amazement. People at home watching on their televisions leaped from their couches asking each other, "Did you see that?" It was a moment of pure, unadulterated magic, a move so slick and otherworldly that it seemed to defy the laws of physics. In that instant, Michael Jackson transformed from a superstar into a legend. Those 10 minutes were a paradigm shift. After Motown 25, Michael Jackson was no longer just a pop star. He was an event. The moonwalk became his signature, and that singular performance became the launchpad that sent him into a completely different orbit. If Motown 25 was the launch, Thriller was the journey to a new galaxy. Released in late 1982, the album was a work of pure, unadulterated ambition. Michael Jackson set out to create an album where every single song could be a hit, a record that would appeal to everyone. regardless of race, age, or musical taste. He and Quincy Jones meticulously crafted a collection of songs that spanned genres, from the rock-infused aggression of Beat It to the pop perfection of Billie Jean and the tender balladry of Human Nature. Thriller wasn't just an album, it was a cultural event, a sonic blockbuster that would go on to become the best-selling album of all time. What truly set Thriller apart, however, was its visual component. Michael understood the burgeoning power of the music video as an art form. Instead of simple performance clips, he created short films. The 14-minute epic for Thriller, directed by John Landis, was a cinematic masterpiece that changed MTV forever. It had a plot, special effects, and iconic choreography that people would practice in their living rooms for years to come. The impact of Thriller cannot be overstated. It shattered sales records, won a record-breaking 8 Grammy Awards in one night, and broke down the racial barriers on MTV, which had been reluctant to play black artists. Michael Jackson became the undisputed king of pop, a global icon whose influence was felt in every corner of the world. Thriller wasn't just the biggest album of the 80s. It was a creative and commercial behemoth that redefined the possibilities of popular music. As Michael Jackson's fame reached astronomical levels, he became more than a musician. He was a global brand, a style icon whose every move was watched and emulated. His fashion choices became iconic. The single sequined glove, the military-style jackets, the fedora hat, and the high water pants with white socks. These weren't just clothes. They were elements of a carefully constructed persona, defining the look of a decade. His impact on the world of dance was equally profound. The moonwalk was just the beginning. Michael was a visionary choreographer who blended styles, from the fluid grace of Fred Astaire to the sharp, robotic movements of street dancers. The zombie dance from Thriller, the anti-gravity lean and smooth criminal, the crotch grab, the spin, the toe stand, these moves became legendary. He inspired generations of dancers. Furthermore, Michael Jackson revolutionized the concept of the stadium tour. His live shows were massive theatrical productions. The Bad World Tour and the later Dangerous World Tour were spectacles of light, sound, and illusion. They featured elaborate stage sets, pyrotechnics, magic tricks, and intricate choreography performed with a massive troupe of dancers. He set a new benchmark for live entertainment. In essence, Michael Jackson curated his entire artistic output with the meticulous detail of a film director. Every album release was an event. Every video was a short film. Every public appearance was a performance. He was not just a singer who made records. He was the architect of his own universe, a world of music, dance, fashion, and spectacle that invited fans to dream. This holistic approach to artistry is a key part of his legacy, demonstrating a level of vision and control that few artists have ever achieved. Beneath the global superstardom, the dazzling costumes, and the otherworldly talent, there was a man with a deep and abiding sense of compassion. Michael Jackson used his immense platform not just for entertainment, but for philanthropy. In 1985, he co-wrote We Are the World with Lionel Richie, an ambitious project that brought together the biggest names in music to raise funds for famine relief in Africa. His charity work was not limited to grand public gestures. Throughout his life, Michael quietly and consistently supported a vast number of causes, particularly those involving children. He often visited hospitals and orphanages during his world tours, spending hours with sick children, bringing them gifts and a moment of joy, far away from the glare of the media cameras. One of the most visible expressions of his love for children and innocence was his Neverland Ranch. It was a sprawling estate designed as a fantasy world, complete with an amusement park, a movie theater, and a zoo. Songs like Heal the World, Man in the Mirror, and Earth Song were more than just hits. They were his personal manifestos. Through his music and his actions, Michael Jackson consistently tried to use his voice to advocate for the vulnerable and to promote a message of love, peace, and global unity. Being the king of pop came at an immense personal cost. Living under the most intense microscope in the world meant that every aspect of Michael Jackson's life was subject to scrutiny, speculation, and sensationalism. The shy, sensitive man who created such joyous art was often at odds with the bizarre public figure portrayed in the tabloids. The crown he wore was incredibly heavy, and the isolation that came with his level of fame was profound and deeply taxing. His physical and emotional struggles were significant. He suffered from vitiligo, a skin disorder that causes depigmentation, and endured immense physical pain stemming from a serious scalp burn he suffered during a commercial shoot in 1984. The greatest challenges of his life came in the form of legal battles and public accusations that tarnished his reputation. Though he was acquitted of all charges in his 2005 trial, the damage to his public image was severe and lasting. Yet, through it all, he continued to turn to his art for solace and expression. Albums like History were filled with songs of anger, defiance, and persecution, reflecting the immense turmoil he was experiencing. It was the sound of an artist fighting for his name, his sanity, and his legacy against a relentless storm. On June 25, 2009, the world stood still. The news of Michael Jackson's sudden passing sent a shockwave across the globe, uniting millions in a collective sense of grief and disbelief. It was a moment that transcended borders, languages, and cultures. People gathered in the streets to dance to his songs, to mourn together, and to celebrate the incredible legacy of the man who had given them so much. Today, more than a decade after his passing, his influence is as potent as ever. His music continues to be discovered by new generations who are captivated by its energy, innovation, and emotional depth. Artists across every genre still cite him as a primary influence. His dance moves are still taught, his music videos are still revered as masterpieces, and his albums are still held up as the gold standard in pop music production. His legacy lives on not just in the records he broke, but in the connections he forged. For so many, his music was a source of comfort, of joy, of escape. It was the song you danced to at your wedding, the ballad that helped you through a heartbreak, the anthem that made you feel like you could take on the world. He had an uncanny ability to articulate universal human emotions, to make you feel understood. This emotional resonance is why his music endures. It speaks to the child in all of us, to our hopes, our fears, and our dreams of a better world. Michael Jackson's story is a complex tapestry of triumph and tragedy, of dazzling light and deep shadows. But his ultimate legacy is one of unity and artistic brilliance. He was a boy from Gary, Indiana, who became the king of pop, a man who broke down barriers and taught the world to dance. He believed in the power of music to heal, to inspire, and to bring people together. And in the end, that is exactly what he did. His beat goes on, his melodies linger in the air, and his spirit continues to move us, proving that a true king never really loses his crown.